¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kan du norsk?
If you used Babbel, you would. Babbel's conversation-based techniques teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world, with lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/Spotify. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Welcome back to I Want That Too, the podcast where Disney merch meets Disney history. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and as always, I'm joined by the lovely Lauren Hersey. And how are you today, Lauren?
The sun is shining upright, so it's a good day. We're recording at a different day and time, so who knows? The show might have a totally different vibe. We shall see.
Yes, we're doing this during the day, so I'm looking out my front window and squinting. But speaking of during the day, I made a trip. Well, again, when am I not in Target? Let's be honest here.
They see you coming. You have favorite cashiers. You're always in Target.
I do. They're lovely people. Hi, Maureen. Anyway, speaking of which, while I was there, because on our last show, if you didn't catch this, folks, Lauren did this amazing feature about where Disney consumer products, where they're moving into in 2026, their new initiatives and that sort of thing. And while she was doing that, Lauren was talking about Lorcana, this game that, well, I mean, Disney launched that, in fact, it was 2 years ago, 2023, and now it's this giant thing. And so I made a point of, well, okay, let me go to the toy aisle in Target and see what they had there. And what was interesting is you could pick up, I guess there's a subset of cards within Lorcana called Fabled, and you can add to this card trading game for $5.99 a pack, and that gets you 10 additional cards. There were also expansion sets that at different price points. For example, there was one called Palace Heist that was Aladdin themed. That's $29.99, and then there was the one called the Illumineers Quest, and that was $59.99. But that seemed to be a Little Mermaid themed, and just anecdotally, did notice on the shelves, Lauren, that there were already Zootopia 2 play sets. But, Lauren, I'll be damned. I walked up and down, every aisle of the toy section at my Target and didn't see a single Tron Ares toy.
Huh, that's odd.
I thought so as well. And further, just last night, wanted to follow up on that, and went over to Amazon figuring that, well, I mean, it's a brand new giant movie from Disney. There will, of course, be some sort of a book about the making of Tron Ares. Nothing. Did that strike you a little weird?
Yeah, and I did see that they had some merch, but I don't know toys. So I think that is odd, certainly.
Okay.
Maybe demographic, right? Like, who would be going to see that movie?
Well, given that business fell off this past weekend by 67%, the answer there, Lauren, is much fewer folks than Disney had hoped. So, anyway, moving on now. Do you want to tell the nice folks about, what we'll be talking about on today's episode?
I do, Jim, but before we move on for Lorcana, I just wanted to say that my boss told me, I'm looking back at the text, that there is a D23 Lorcana card that is going or had went for $350,000. On eBay.
Yeah.
Is that wild? And he sent Miles a box that the Maleficent as the dragon card was going for like $500, and there was another one like it was like Mickey dressed up maybe as like Robin Hood. But anyways, so high value Lorcana cards if you have any of those handy. But now I can tell you.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So jam-packed the show today. We're talking about I think is a bold move that has me wondering if Disney is trying to build its own Hogwarts. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about, we can't have a show leading into the holidays without talking about holiday merch, specifically Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, and how Disney merch is showing up around the world. And to wrap it up, we're getting a part 2 of Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
Yes. We're gonna look into how Angela Lansbury eventually wound up as Disney's most magical apprentice witch in Bedknobs and Broomsticks. But before we do that, we of course have to acknowledge our sponsor, which is unlockmagic.com, and that's the same trusted team behind the DVC rental store and DVC resale market. And if you're planning a Disney trip, unlockmagic.com has the best deals on Walt Disney World tickets, including the lowest prices for tickets like those after hours hard ticket events at the Magic Kingdom, Mickey's Very Merry, and also the one over at the studios, Jollywood Nights. So visit unlockmagic.com to grab the best ticket deals and make your next Disney World trip just a little more magical. Okay, so speaking of, we were just talking about Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, which, by the way, Mr. Testa just shared with me the first 3 nights of that, Lauren, already sold out. So, if you want to go this year, move with haste. But let's talk about what folks can potentially get once they purchase the tickets and plan to go see the Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party.
Yeah, so they've been teasing the merch because the parties don't actually start until November 7th. So we've got a couple weeks, and then they run through December 21st. So far they've shared this merch in like 2 waves. So you could only get the merch during the party nights at Magic Kingdom. And I mean, you'll get them on eBay or wherever you want to get them after that. But most of these items are going to be in the Emporium. So what do you think about this year's like branding and the theme? It's different than prior years.
It is. But on the other hand, I mean, face it, it's Mickey marching down Main Street with a drum that says 2025, and he's looking back at the wooden soldiers from Disney's Babes in Toyland, which are always such a highlight of the actual parade that's held during the Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. So, if you're looking for clothing or the coffee mug to brag to, friends and family what you did this holiday season, this kind of gets it right across, doesn't it, Lauren?
Yeah. And so we talked about Jollywood Nights a couple episodes ago and Ollie and how that has like a vintage vibe. I can't put my finger on this era because it's different than what we saw with Jollywood Nights. You have any guess around like what year this is based off of? Just by...
Oh, that's an interesting question. I mean, face it, it's Mickey, and if we go, for example, with is that the backpack? Yeah, that's the somebody wearing the backpack. Same thing. We have Minnie in a classic Mrs. Claus outfit. I mean,
maybe like 90, I don't know, 90s. Part of the collection, we have the mini Loungefly backpack, cream and red, has the characters and the castle. You get your signature, spirit jersey. Very, very cool. I love the headbands, as I normally do, the mini ears for the for the ladies and gentlemen. I don't know, maybe not as cute as the Wally one or Ollie that look like waffles, but still cute. And then there's also, some collectibles, which is like the mug and an ornament and a magnet to get your bragging rights in. But we want to hear from you guys. Like, what do you think about this year's merch? If you've gotten any previews online, I think it's a pretty standard lineup, and I like the way that it's going. I like Chip and Dale on the back of the backpack. Like, that's something different. So that's my opinion.
And just to put a little perspective on this, our very first Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party was held in '83. So what is that? That would make it, I'm doing the math here, 42 years? Really? Wow. So you're not wrong, Lauren. I think at this point it would be possible to circle back on a prior look. So it'll be interesting to see if this outfit, the classic Mickey and Minnie in the classic Santa and Mrs. Claus outfits was used previously.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know. Just trying to put my finger on that era.
All right. Now, speaking of Disney and the holidays, you have some news from across the pond now.
Yeah, in the last episode, we talked about Europe and how a lot of what's being rolled out in that region of the world is, making impacts worldwide. And I mean, if you follow Disney news, like, it was everywhere that Disney was partnering with this Selfridges, and they launched a Disney store inside of their the branch on Oxford Street, and they're selling Disney Parks merch outside the parks, which was, that was what made this interesting to me, because I'd never heard of Selfridge. How would you say the Selfridge?
Yeah, and Lauren, in doing her research here, it shared that for those of you who don't know, Selfridge is a high-end British department store. Sort of what? Similar in prestige, if we're talking stateside stores, Bloomingdale's, Nordstrom, would that be the equivalent?
Exactly, but I didn't know that. So, obviously I had to Google it because it was everywhere as far as making the rounds with merch news. But this marks the first time that, a lot of items from the parks across multiple resorts, not just Disneyland Paris, they're going to be available for purchase there. So looking at Disney World, Disneyland Paris, Shanghai Disney, Tokyo, and those are including all the things like plush or park collections that are exclusive ornaments. So I think it's really, really cool that they're doing this. And when I first read the article, I thought that they were just bringing back Disney stores, but that is not the case with this one. It is a part of their broader most magical Christmas collaboration. So I think this is more of a pop-up, but they are going to have 60 brand collaborations. You're going to get the holiday window displays. So this starts November 6th if you're across the pond. So maybe Chris Cox can check it out for us.
Oh, that'd be cool. Now, that said, though, and again, Lauren always does her due diligence, so she's discovered that selected items will be available online, and this is through what? Disney Stores UK? Is that correct?
Yeah, so disneystore.co.uk.
And likewise, the Selfridge website. So, and the other thing I guess I've read about this is that I guess Selfridge is famous for its yellow bag, and among the items that they're doing that key off of the yellow bag is there's special Mickey stuff because Mickey has yellow shoes, and Winnie the Pooh stuff because he's kind of yellow himself, honey colored. So, but anyway, I gotta, I have to admit, I'm gonna head on over to the Selfridge website because just the notion of the fact that they're going to have stuff available from Shanghai Disneyland, Tokyo.
That's what it says, Mm-hmm. I think it's very, very interesting, especially like connecting it to what we talked about on the last episode. So if this is a success, are we going to see more of these types of things to come?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Now, speaking of things to come, you came across a very interesting story in the past week about a new IP that Disney, acquired isn't the right word. That they have the film rights for this, right?
Yes. And so I talk about the crime scene investigation going on in my head, and I'm, always connecting the dots here. But I was reading this article about Disney acquiring the rights to Catherine Rundle's fantasy book series. It's called Impossible Creatures. And something clicked for me immediately. And I thought, what a perfect time to talk about this as you're talking about Bedknobs and Broomsticks, because it kind of gives that fantasy world. I don't know. There's the fantasy era. And we've also talked about, we obviously around these parts we love Marvel, we love Lucasfilms, but they're kind of being maxed out right now. And, timelines are complicated. And with Epic Universe opening, I'm just wondering if this is Disney's way of planting the seeds for, the next Hogwarts level universe.
Well, now it's interesting you bring this up because this isn't the first time Disney's done this. For example, back in April of 2000, Disney literally laid down $8 million for what then was described as a cross-media deal. And what they did is they acquired the film rights, the theme park rights, and the interactive experience rights to the Book of Aberrat, which was a young adult series of books that horror giant Clive Barker had written. And Disney did this preemptively, Lauren, because the first book of the series wasn't published by HarperCollins till October of 2002. So, it was 2.5 years ahead of time. Disney planted a flag in this property. And at that time, there were 5 books planned for the series. And second book in the series, which was known as Days of Magic, Nights of War, that came out in 2004. We didn't get a third Aberrat book, Absolute Midnight, until 2011. And sadly, then, Lauren, in the very next year, poor Clive Barker, you want to talk about nightmare situation? He goes in for dental surgery, winds up with toxic shock syndrome, goes into a coma, eventually comes out, but it slows his creative output. So as of right now, and that happened back in 2012, we are still waiting on the 4th book in the Aberrat series, Kai Rising, as well as what's supposed to be the 5th and final volume until the end of time. But again, Disney has done this previously, and honestly, you're not wrong. This is a Disney that remembers very, very clearly that they had the rights to, they had the opportunity to publish the Harry Potter book series. Want to stress here that everybody in publishing stateside passed on this thing. That's why it wound up at Scholastic. And then Disney bobbled the opportunity to make the movies as well. That wound up at Warner Brothers, and then they went for the trifecta. They screwed up the theme park rights, which they went to Universal. So they've been a little tender when it comes to the topic of Harry Potter. So whenever a brand new Harry Potter-like thing rises up over the horizon, Disney's very quick these days to can we make a deal? So let's talk a little bit more about Impossible Creatures and what you've learned.
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with the book series, British author, like we talked about. So this is it's a fantasy adventure series, obviously targeted to kids. And it is centered around this magical, if you're a fan, I'm sorry if I butcher this, archipelago of Gilmoria. Did I get that? Which is a hidden world where these mythical creatures live, and there's the young heroes trying to protect it from extinction.
Oh, wow.
So,
I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but the archipelago that you just described, that is, I mean, literally, I could read to you right now the description of Aberrat, and it also features an island, with magical creatures. I mean, it's like, wow, okay, let's go buy another one of those. So, okay, so it sold well, right? It's doing okay.
Yeah, it's at Harry Potter levels. I mean, like, there's already been over 1 million copies sold. And so, like, does this also kind of feel like a little bit like How to Train Your Dragons? Like, as I keep talking about it, I'm like connecting all of those dots here, but it feels like, because it's already a huge success for the initial books, that to get the film rights for this, like, it makes total sense. And like, the other similarity between J.K. Rowling and Catherine is that she's also the one that is writing the screenplays.
Now, it's interesting you bring that up, because J.K. did not write the screenplays for the Harry Potter movies, but she did write the screenplays, at least the first two, for Fantastic Beasts, which, remember, was the spinoff that was supposed to be 5 films that stalled out at 3. So no disrespect to Catherine. I'll be fascinated to see, the sort of screenplay that she writes. But sometimes having the author involved, especially when you're making a movie, that can get interesting.
Like Mary Poppins.
Hey, who am I to say? Okay,
But anyway, so they're co-producing with her company Impossible Films. And so I'm thinking that this could be a major franchise, but we've seen this happen before. You never know. I don't know. But, like, look at the timing, though. Like, with Universal rebooting Harry Potter, right, for Max.
Well, yeah. Now remember, that's Warner's. Now, mind you, Universal is involved because, of course, Universal, has Harry Potter for all of its parks. In fact, interesting you bring that up, Laura, because supposedly Universal Creative, which, again, remember, they're working on the Universal UK park, and evidently there's this very heated conversation going on right now about which Harry Potter do we put in our new park in Great Britain. Do we stick with the 8 films that people know and love, or do we roll the dice and commit to, the version that's going to be showing up on Max starting next year? Because, I'm not going to lie to you, Lauren, there are people at Universal right now who think, we may have made a mistake with Epic Universe in that, tying the land there to the Fantastic Beasts movies. I mean, the irony irony is the central attraction of that park is, of course, tied to the Harry Potter movies, because, you go through the Flu Network and you're now at the Ministry of Magic. But, that there's a number of people at Universal right now who said, let's not make the same mistake again. Don't commit us to the HBO Max thing, just in case, that's not as beloved as the movies are. Because, we know people love the 8 Harry Potter movies with Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson and Rupert Grint and the like. So,
and I didn't even know Fantastic Beasts was a thing until we went to Epic.
Yeah,
the first time. Don't tell Eric.
What is that?
I was like, what are these little fluffy things? And then we saw the show.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, Lauren, the people at Universal are not happy that you're saying that out loud. All right, because that's the exact same thing that 90% of the theme park visitors are saying. It's like, what are these creatures? Oh, they're from that movie you didn't go see. But by the way, there's a Harry Potter attraction right over there, and please go.
And it was incredible.
Yeah, of course it was. But it's just it's a thing. You got to be careful in these situations that you're backing the right horse. And speaking of which, again, one of the reasons you go to see a movie is you like the actors that are in it. And when we get back from this break, Lauren and I will talk about how Angela Lansbury wound up playing, again, Apprentice Witch Eglantine Price in the Bedknobs and Broomsticks movies. But first, this. And we're back. Okay, so on last week's show, Lauren and I spoke at length about how Bedknobs and Broomsticks got greenlit at Disney. And just a quick recap here, it was announced in the trades April of '66 that Disney was going to make a movie called The Magic Bedpost, which was going to be a Mary Poppins-like movie. Something was loaded with music and animation and visual effects. And Lauren, this had been in the works forever. I mean, remember, Disney bought the movie rights to this Mary Norton book back in 1945, so more than 20 years earlier. But again, the big question was, all right, who are we going to get to play Apprentice Witch Eglantine Price, who is the character that drives so much of the story in Bedknobs and Broomsticks? And forgive me here, folks, I have to pause for a second, because last night, when I was talking with you and Eric said he was finally going to make you watch Bedknobs and Broomsticks. So I have to ask, Lauren, how much of the movie did you stay awake for?
Well, unfortunately, not to be a buzzkill here, but none, because he didn't get to putting it on. I was like, we can lay here and watch these funny reels of these giant skeletons talking to each other and laugh, or you're gonna make me watch it. So I will give you my thoughts as soon as I do, because he did say that when we were on the phone last night.
We did. Okay, so all right, I had to check, folks. I'm sorry. Okay, so. Anyway, getting back to, again, it's 66, thereabouts, the studio's looking at, well, who should we get? Well, and the general consensus is, given that this film story is largely set in a seaside village in the UK, kind of a no-brainer. Actress who's playing Eglantine should be English. And Lauren, that much the folks at Disney Studios could agree upon. But after that, well, again, remember, this is supposed to be Disney's follow-up to Mary Poppins, which at the time, and for a lot of folks, even today, they consider Mary Poppins to be the pinnacle of Walt Disney's movie-making career, at least when it comes to live-action films. And by the way, even at that point, Lauren, the myths were already in place about Mary Poppins. How Walt had searched for years for just the right actress to play that practically perfect nanny. And at one point, I mean, picture this. At one point, he was thinking about having Betty Davis play Mary Poppins, and that would have been scary Poppins. On the other hand, there was a time he offered it to Broadway star Mary Martin, but it wasn't till March of 61 when Walt went to New York and saw Julie Andrews playing Guinevere in the original Broadway production of Leonard and Lowe's Camelot that he's like, that's her. That's the perfect person to play the practically perfect in every way nanny. And, there's no disputing Walt made the right choice. I mean, Mary Poppins was a huge success at the box office. Julie Andrews actually takes home an Oscar as Best Actress for her performance in the title role of that movie. So the takeaway is just basically that the folks at Disney Studios like, look, take your time. When it comes to Eglantine Price, the casting of this role, leave no stone unturned. Consider every possible option, because that's what Walt did with Mary Poppins. So this is why when the Magic Bedpost is first announced as being in development in April 66, Lynn Redgrave is an early favorite for the role. And this is because Georgie Girl, the romantic comedy that Lynn starred in, that by the way had, do you know the hit song, Hey There, Georgie Girl? You don't remember that at all, do you, Lauren?
No.
There we go. See, I'm an old fart. I remember these things. But anyway, Georgie Girl actually made it to number 2 here in the States on the Billboard Hot 100. And by the way, weird little Disney tie to that song. While the music for Hey There, Georgie Girl was written by Tom Springfield, the lyrics for this hit pop tune were written by Jim Dale, who you might remember from Pete's Dragon. He was the guy who played Doc Terminus, the comic villain of that 1977 Disney film. Ringing a bell?
I have seen that, by the way.
Oh, well, there we go. She's all right.
Ring-a-ding-ding.
There we go. All right. Okay, so back now to Georgie Girl, the movie, because Lynn Redgrave had received a Best Actress nomination for her performance in this romantic comedy. Disney didn't give some serious thought to casting her as Eglantine in Bedknobs and Broomsticks, but mind you, another reason that they're kind of leaning in this direction, Lauren, looking at Redgrave is, well, Julie Andrews, when she played Mary Poppins, was only 27. So the thinking was, if the studio wanted lightning to strike twice, all right, we need to find an English actress in her 20s who could play Eglantine. So, and by the way, in 68, when Disney is full force looking for an actress to play Eglantine, Lynn Redgrave is only 25 years old, whereas Judy Carn, who was the Sock It To Me girl on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, she's 29 in 1968, and she has a very strong singing voice, and she's a professional dancer. And Carn, Lauren, oh my God, she came so close to becoming Eglantine Price, so close, in fact, that even today, if you chase down the Bedknobs and Broomsticks Storyteller album, not the soundtrack from the film, but Disney would make sort of these adjacent recordings for, like, kids' records and that sort of thing. You can actually hear Judy Carn belting out these songs. They hired her to record this material because there were so many people at the studio. It's like, that's her. This is who we need to hire. Go with her. But then there were also other folks at the studio who felt like, look, we got to go in a different direction here. And what they want to do is that, like, well, we don't necessarily want her to, Eglantine to be just like Mary Poppins, a 20-year-old English woman. Couldn't we maybe have her as a matron, an older woman? And so they talk about Leslie Caron, who was 37 at the time. And, it, of course, appeared in all of those wonderful musicals for MGM, Lily, Gigi. I mean, she it was one of these things where we could have Hollywood royalty play this part. And then there was literally a team at Disney, Lauren, who were like, why are we working so hard to reinvent the wheel here? This is supposed to be our long-awaited follow-up to Mary Poppins. Why aren't we circling back around to the actress who helped us make this movie such a huge success? And they were like, think about all the people who would buy tickets to Bedknobs and Broomsticks just if they learned that Julie Andrews was going to make another movie musical for Disney. That would be an absolute goldmine at the box office. And Lauren, you got to admit that there's a logic there. So this is why in 1968, Bill Walsh, who, by the way, had produced Mary Poppins for Disney Studio, he reaches out quietly to Julie Andrews and says, hey, how would you feel about coming back to Disney? We got this project, Bedknobs and Broomsticks. But here's the thing. You got to remember that Julie went straight from working on Mary Poppins to The Sound of Music. And when Bill reaches out, she's actually working again with the director of The Sound of Music, Robert Weiss, on a biopic about stage legend Gertrude Lawrence. And so Andrews effectively waves Walsh off, saying, in essence, look, I've spent 18 months working on this movie musical for 20th Century Fox, and the last thing I want to do after I finish working on Star, by the way, that's the actual name of this Gertrude Lawrence biopic, Lauren, Star. She's like, I don't want to start on another big movie musical. And so, it just, look, thank you for thinking of me. Thanks for reaching out. Best of luck with this project. But no, I seriously, I can't play Eglantine Price in Bedknobs and Broomsticks, which now puts Bill Walsh back at square one. I mean, after months and months of auditioning actresses, Disney still doesn't have a viable candidate to play the lead in this highly anticipated follow-up to Mary Poppins. So what does Walsh do? He decides, I'm going to take my mind off of this. I'm going to go out to a night of theater. And the second national tour of MAME has just opened at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in Los Angeles in late June of '68. So Bill gets himself a ticket, and the next thing you know, Lauren, he's found his Eglantine. But we'll get to that part of the story in a sec. But first, this. And we're back. All right, before we get to this part of the story here, Lauren, I think I need to explain how national tours of Broadway shows used to work. Now, a star like Angela Lansbury, who, by the way, opened MAME on Broadway back in May of '66, wins a Tony for the role. She might go out with the first national tour, but not the second, largely because the second national tour, well, it tends to hit all of the cities that the first national tour didn't. So it gets to smaller markets, less prestige, which by the way, reminds me, your national tour of Six, do you know which company that was?
I do not, off the top of my head.
Okay, because, a lot of people checked in after you talked about that here on I Want That Too, and said they had caught that tour and really, really enjoyed it as well. But anyway, back to why an Angela Lansbury would agree to go out with a second national tour rather than a first. Well, Angela was a pragmatist. She had stayed with the original Broadway production of MAME through March of '68, and she then learns that the second national tour of this award-winning musical is going to be stopping in L.A. from June through the end of August of that same year, 1968. And so Lansbury thinks, well, look, a lot of folks who work in film and television are undoubtedly going to come out to see MAME while it's at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, which is why it might be smart for me to appear in the title role of this musical as it's being presented in LA, who knows? Somebody could see me and then offer me a job in film or television further on down the line. So this is why she agrees to temporarily step into the second national tour as it makes a stop on the West Coast. And proving that Angela Lansbury is a very smart cookie, it's this production that Bill Walsh sees, and there she is up on stage singing and dancing. And the very next day, Walsh is back in Disney Studios saying, I found her. I found Eglantine. Angela Lansbury would be perfect for this. She's so different than Julie Andrews was in Mary Poppins. I mean, she can sing, she can dance, but Angela can play her as a proper English matron, which, Lauren, is a polite way of saying, that Lansbury, who'd been working in Hollywood since the mid-40s, was now of a certain age. To be specific, in 1968, she was 43, which, by the way, is 23 years younger than I am now. So, I have no right to talk about, well, she was old. Oh my God, she was an older woman.
Older than 25.
Older than 25. There we go. So again, in Hollywood speak, this meant, she's a mature performer, but still attractive. So anyway, Bill now begins the lengthy process of wooing Angela Lansbury to come play Eglantine Price in Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and getting her to sign on the dotted line took a surprising amount of effort on Bill's part, and well, part of the reason here, Lauren, was that Angela had already committed to a new Broadway show. It was called Dear World, a musical that was being written specifically for her by Jerry Herman, the same guy who wrote the songs for Mame and Hello Dolly. And no, lucky for Bill Walsh, Dear World had a relatively short run on Broadway. Opened in February of 1969, got kind of middling reviews, and closed in late May of that same year after just 132 performances. But still good enough that Lansbury gets her second Best Actress Tony for that show. And then, Lauren, there was, to be blunt, Lansbury was a little put off by Disney's production process. Walsh brings her to the studio. And by the way, they did this exact same thing to Julie Andrews. They bring her to the studio, and they proceed to walk her through room after room full of storyboards to show her the movie that, they're looking to make. And, and this is the scene where you'll be flying, and this is the scene where you'll be dancing under the water. And Angela was like, this is kind of like looking at a comic book. Can I see the script? I'm used to working with scripts. And more to the point, Lansbury is looking at how everything is already drawn and planned already. And it's like, Jesus, is there going to be any room here for an actual spontaneous performance? Because I'm an actress. I think you want me to perform. But that said, Lansbury recognizes Bedknobs and Broomsticks for what it is. It's an opportunity to play the lead in a big-budget movie musical at a time when Hollywood has stopped making these sorts of movies and do the amount of animation and visual effects that will be needed to properly pull off Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Angela's like, well, I guess these storyboards are a necessary evil, and all right, I'll figure out a way to work with them. So, October 31st, 1969, Halloween. Lansbury officially signs to play Eglantine Price in Disney's Bedknobs and Broomsticks. And with Angela now locked into place, the studio now begins to look for an actor to play Amelius or her Eglantine. And Ron Moody, who'd played Fagin in the big screen version of Oliver that had been released to theaters the year previous, 1968. And by the way, Moody did such a good job, he got a Best Oscar nomination for his performance in that movie musical. He was Disney's first choice for Amelius Brown. But I think getting nominated for an Oscar kind of inflated Ron's ego a bit, because he was like, oh, absolutely, I will be in your movie. However, I must insist on top billing over Angela Lansbury. And it was like, okay, thanks. We'll get back to you. So they then approached Peter Ustinov, who, by the way, the year previous, 1968, he had starred in Blackbeard's Ghost for Disney Studios. And Ustinov, looks at the material and it's like, ooh, I get to play a con man, who's pretending to be the headmaster of a correspondence college of witchcraft, who's living in London during the Blitz. And it's like, it looks like a really juicy part to him. But the part that kind of terrifies Peter is like, I have to sing and dance. Is there any way Emilius cannot sing and dance in this movie? And it's like, well, it's kind of a movie musical. So he demurs, which is why almost by default, David Tomlinson winds up as Emilius to Angela's Eglantine. Tomlinson, Lauren, he plays Mr. Banks, Jane and Michael's dad in Mary Poppins, but more recently, David had played Peter Thorndike, who was the comic villain in Disney's The Love Bug, which went wide in theaters in March of 1969. And then, I swear to God, Lauren, this is true. That movie was the second highest grossing film in North America for all of 1969. Only Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid sold more tickets. So, as far as Disney executives are concerned, that guy was in a smash hit for our studio. And more to the point, inside of 5 years, he appeared in 2 of our top grossing films. Again, Mary Poppins and The Love Bug. So it's that he's a suitable co-star for Angela Lansbury, Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Let's go. And the other thing is, because Tomlinson had already worked for Disney, he was familiar with how things worked at the Mouse House. He's like, oh yeah, storyboards. Okay, yeah, I can do that. And David wasn't a guy who was going to whine or complain because, all right, I have to hang from a wire for a couple of hours in front of a green screen while I'm pretending to swim and singing Beautiful Briny. So, all right. Production begins on Bedknobs and Broomsticks, March of 1970, concludes mid-June, same year. However, given all the animation effects work, Bedknobs and Broomsticks won't be released at theaters till almost 18 months later, Lauren, December of 1971. But here's the fascinating bend on this story. So it's a week after Angela has signed to play Eglantine Price. And now Julie Andrews reaches out to Bill Walsh and says, hey, I've changed my mind. If you'll still have me, I'd love to play that apprentice witch character in that movie you're making. And so why did Julie change her mind? Well, I remember Angela signs, the contract on October 31st, 1969. On November 12th of 1969, Julie Andrews would be marrying director Blake Edwards. And as a wedding present, you have to understand that Julie had her kids from her first marriage, and Blake had his kids from his first marriage. And she was thinking, it's going to take some work to blend our two families. I'm going to need to be home. And so what Julie was thinking, we make our home in Los Angeles. And if I'm working at Disney, I mean, and knowing the way Disney works, I show up at 9 o'clock in the morning, I shoot my movie by 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm climbing in my car and driving home. So, she said they won't shoot it on location. It'll be all on sound stages. So this would be the perfect assignment to take on in the 70s with her, or 1970, with her brand new husband and them trying to blend their two families. And by the way, I want to stress here that Julie and Blake did a wonderful job of blending their families. In fact, that was that kind of rarest of rare Hollywood marriages, it lasted for 41 years. And
That's beautiful.
And they made some wonderful movies together. I mean, just the other night I was watching Victoria, which is Blake's basically a Valentine to his wife, and great movie, still a lot of fun to watch. But anyway, so now poor Bill Walsh has to break the news to Julie, because evidently she missed the news in the trades that Angela had been signed. And, the week previous. And Julie, to her credit, is gracious to a fault. She's like, oh, Angela will be wonderful in that part. And forget that I even reached out, and just wish you much success with this production. And that was that. But anyway, Lauren, that's how Angela Lansbury wound up playing Disney's favorite apprentice witch. Which again, given this show's being posted on October 30th, folks, the day before Halloween, I'm hoping it is suitable fare. And maybe Lauren,
By Halloween,
you will watch this movie. But anyway, on that note, folks, I guess that's going to bring things to the end here.
Yeah, let's just close it up.
Okay.
Close up shop for today.
Okay, now, if you want to keep up with everything happening across the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network, please follow us on social, and don't forget to check out our Patreon for bonus shows and early access.
Yes, and if you have questions or ideas, please let us know. Shoot us a message, jims@jimhillmedia.com, and I'm at laurenhersey.com.
And if you like the show, please leave a quick rating or review. It helps other Disney fans find I Want That Too.
Yep, and that does it for today's episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on I Want That Too.